Sociality is the forming of cooperative social groups. Within these groups, animals can obtain social information by observing interactions between group members. The ability to do so is called social cognition. By watching various interactions, animals can perceive the reputation of others. One example of this can be seen in the chimpanzee image scoring study by Russell, Cal, and Dunbar in 2008. In this study, chimpanzees observed an interaction between two individuals and determined the reputation of the person with the food and would act accordingly. The individual in possession of the food could be nice and share the food. Chimpanzees were more likely to stay in front of the nice individual. The individual could also be mean and slap the beggar away. Chimpanzees were less likely to stay in front of these individuals. Generally, dominance hierarchies are determined through aggressive interactions, physical characteristics, and such. It is hypothesized that animals can learn these hierarchies by viewing certain interactions. It is further hypothesized that dominance can affect play partner preference. Animals may choose to play with dominant individuals to practice defensive strategies. Furthermore, if they chose to consistently play with less dominant individuals and seem dominant more often, less animals would want to play with them. In the Partner Preferences Among Littermates study conducted by Camille Ward et al. In 2008, researchers found that dominance was more important for mature puppies due to their increased awareness of intragroup status. According to Rooney and Bradshaw's 2006 study about social cognition in the domestic dog, during competition over resources, dogs were less likely to approach the winner. Yet, during playful interactions between dogs and humans, the observing dogs tended to approach the winner first and more often. We based our research project on the findings of the aforementioned studies. Our research question was what factors influence a dog's play partner preference. We hypothesized that dogs prefer to associate with winners and predicted that dogs would have a higher preference score for winners.
We conducted our study in McElwain 201 from around 2:10 to 5 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays from March 27, 2014 to April 8, 2014. The participants were Grace, who is a 7-year-old black lab with a friendly disposition. Lou, who is an 8-year-old yellow lab with a goofy disposition. Zeus, a 4-year-old chocolate lab mutt with a timid disposition. And Max, who is a 2-year-old chocolate lab with an excitable disposition. The room we conducted in was rectangular with a rectangular hallway attached. We set up a camera at the intersection of the hallway and the main room facing the two people playing tug of war. The dogs were left alone in the room to acclimate to it. Afterwards, the three of us stood still in the same position for 7.5 minutes, not looking at or touching the dog. Afterwards, we checked the camera to see if the dogs had any bias towards a certain person. The camera was used to see the tug-of-war interaction between the two participants, the dog's gaze during the interaction, and the dog's reactions. The two people were 7 feet away from each other, with their locations marked by tape. The interaction occurred exactly in the middle.
2 people were involved in each tug-of-war incident, while the third person restrained the dog during the interaction. We cycled through all possible options of pairs, taking into account a possible side bias. We had 2 sets of 3 possibilities based on the 2 people involved in the interaction and the side at which they were present. Andrew flipped the coin to determine the winning side. We had 2 types of trials, namely toy and food. The nature of these trials depended on the dog and the degree of interest shown. For the toy trials, the person who won the interaction would turn around and shake the toy to demonstrate that he or she had won. The person would then place the toy at the center of the room and both people would go towards the locations marked by tape. For the food trials, the winning person would hold up the food so that the dog saw who had it last. Both people would then go to the windowsill to place the food piece under a plastic bag before returning to their locations marked by tape. After the interaction in both toy and food trials, the two participants would sit down at their specified locations. We attempted to do 3 sets of 6 trials for a total of 18 trials per dog, but some studies couldn't be used due to the dog's disinterest in the proceedings. The behaviors we looked for were first approach, turn towards, and interact. In this toy trial with Max, he turned towards, approached, and interacted with Jessica. We considered this an interaction because he dropped the ball near Jessica. Other interactions were lick, sniff, and touch. This is the food trial with Zeus. In the food trials, the dogs did not have to go to the middle so that there was no turn towards. You can see how he approached Jessica first without having to go to the middle. Here is another toy trial with Max. You can see how he turned towards, approaches, and interacts with the winner. This is the food trial with Lou. You can see how she approaches Jessica first, but then interacts with Andrew. This is a toy trial with Max. You can see how he turns towards Jessica, but then first approaches and interacts with Andrew.
We calculated a preference score for the winner based off of 3 types of behavior seen from the dogs. The different aspects of the preference score were turning towards the winner, approaching the winner first, and interacting with the winner. We calculated the preference score on the basis of a binary number system. A score of 1 meant that the dog displayed the action, while a score of 0 meant the dog did not display the action. The scores for the categories were added together as an average. Preference scores ranged from 0 to 1, with 1 meaning a higher preference for the winner. For example, if a dog turned toward the winner, approached the winner first, and then interacted with the loser, then it would be 1 plus 0 over 3, which would be a preference score of 0.667. Also, if a dog were to not have turned toward either participant, but approached the winner and then interacted with the loser, then the calculation would be 1 plus 0 over 2, because the dog did not exhibit the first aspect. This would result in a preference score of 0.5. The mean preference score for each dog was calculated by taking the average of these 3 aspects for all the trials.
This first graph is the dog's preference score for winner of the human-human dyadic tug. On the x-axis you have each dog and all dogs together, and on the y-axis is the mean preference score for the winner. As you can see from the graph, Grace exhibited the highest mean preference score for winners, and Zeus had the lowest. The mean preference score for all dogs was 0.56. As you can see, the results varied from dog to dog. We next graphed each aspect separately to see which aspect was driving the preference scores for each dog. This graph is the percent of turning toward winner of dyadic tug. On the x-axis again is the dog and all dogs, and on the y-axis is the percent turning toward winner. As you can see, Grace turned toward the winner most, and Zeus turned toward the winner the least. Lou does not have a bar because she was all food trials, thus she did not turn toward anyone, and went directly to a person sitting down. This graph is the percent of first approach to winner of the dyadic tug. The x-axis is still the same, and the y-axis is percent of first approach to winner. As you can see, Grace had first approach toward the winner the most, and Lou had first approach toward the winner the least. This graph is the percent of interaction with winner of dyadic tug. The x-axis is again the same, and the y-axis is the percent interaction with winner. As you can see, all dogs interacted with the winner at about the same percentage. From the three aspect graphs, we can see that the two aspects that are driving Grace's high preference score are first approach and turn towards.
We failed to reject the null hypothesis because we saw no significant preference for the winners. There was variation between the dogs when it came to preference score. This may have been due to the different temperaments of the dog and different motivations. We would need more data points and have more trials with more dogs. A lack of data may be one of the reasons for our results. We also had to exclude certain dogs in certain trials. Zeus had fewer trials because he stopped going towards either the winner or the loser and would go to either the hidden food or the door. Some dogs, such as Annie, did not choose either the winner or the loser for any of the trials. She would either go to the food or sit in the middle, so we couldn't collect any data. One future research possibility may include playing with the dog or giving the dog food regardless of whether they pick the winner or the loser. Another future research possibility may involve the winners playing with the dog or giving the dog food if they were picked.